The Tabletop Bellhop Team is here to answer your gaming and game night questions. Tonight's question comes from Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patron Paxonarian, who asks, what are some games that are fun, interesting, and engaging right from the first turn? It can be frustrating to try and introduce inexperienced gamers to great games when it takes a while for cool things to happen. What games would you recommend for those who don't want to wait through a build-up or introductory phase to start having fun?
What a fascinating question, Pax. Thanks for that. Again, Pax is one of our Patreon patrons. If you care to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/tabletopbellhop. Now, I got to say, I found this most interesting because lately we've been talking a lot about games that don't have this feature, games that have a slow build up. And we talk a lot about system mastery and how much better games get the more you play them, and recent reviews where we're like, the game was good by about play number 4. So that is definitely something that's happening now. As an example to call one out, not that it took till game 4 on this one, but Endeavor Deep Sea, we just recently reviewed this, being the perfect example of a game where the fun really ramps up and escalates as the game goes on. But that's not the only one. Like, we've talked about lots of games like this. And there's games where, like, you got to play it twice to get it. You got to play it once to understand the game, and then second time to be able to figure out the strategies. And it won't be until your 10th play that you finally grasp the brilliance of that one mechanic that you barely used. That is not what we're talking about tonight.
Which is a shame. No, yeah, it's funny. When you mentioned the topic, Endeavor is the first game that popped into my head, like, as an example that is not this. Like, I love Endeavor. It's easily one of the best games we've played this year, but it starts off slow, and consistently in the middle, there's this part where it always feels like you're going to accomplish nothing. And then in the last round, everything comes together, and the end result's very satisfying, but it is the exact opposite of what PAX is looking for here. And it's literally all I could think of. I was like, but Endeavor, yeah, it's not that. What is it? I don't know.
All right. On the other hand, we have reviewed a few games lately, like Mind Up and Flip 7, which, well, they may not be the best games out there. Once you start, you're right into the game.
Now, one thing that I do like about Pax's comment in their question is that these types of games, the ones with the slow build-up, the ones that take time to play, the ones that reward system mastery, the ones that need a deep dive, lifestyle games. Just to go back to an earlier review, Dragon Dice, we talked about that one. We're like, yeah, you might have fun your first game, but you got to get into army building to really enjoy this game. The biggest problem with those games is that they aren't great for inexperienced gamers, and they're also not good for hooking new gamers. So they're not the best choice for public play events. And we've actually witnessed this real time at our Brews and Board Games events at the Walkerville Brewery, where we get a mix of different gamer types, but we'll get the strangers in, and we've sat them down with games we love only to have them bring them back after turn 2 going, no, I just can't get into this. So we've actually got to see that. But we've also had other games where we put them out there and people are engaged turn 1 and loving it, and then come back or ask to play it again. Or we have to go, hey, can we borrow this? Can we steal this? Because another group wants to play this game. Can I introduce you to something else? So we're going to talk about our favorite games that are those, the ones that are fun right from the start. Games that get going right away, that are fun the first play, and often many plays after that.
Yeah, you're right. I feel so guilty when that happens at the public play events. I'm like, did I just do a bad teach? Because they brought the game back 8 minutes later and are swapping it for another game. And I love this game. How can they not want to play this game? But it's a lot of those, Sean called them slow burn games, are not entry-level games. And yeah, I have to say, I struggled to come up with games to put on this list because apparently I am a slow burn gamer.
I like that term, slow burn gamer. So maybe if people are interested, wherever you're listening to this, reply to it and let us know if you want to hear the opposite. Though I'm not sure it would be any different than us just listing like our favorite heavy games, but our games that did require system mastery. Games that require system mastery that are worth it is probably a pretty good podcast topic we could possibly talk about in the future. Though I like the term, so we have to use slow burn games, the hottest slow burn games. That might be another one we could go with.
Another interesting one might actually be slow burn games for new inexperienced gamers. So games where you can get someone started, but they really get something out of it, so that they're not just struggling with SAT, the board game, all the way through. It starts slow and they might struggle a little bit, but by the time they get through it, they're loving it. And to me, honestly, Endeavor would probably be one of the ones on that list.
Yeah. And your bonus game recommendation for a great example of that, My City. But that starts off with that fun turn 1, but then builds into something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that what scares people away of that one is the commitment at the beginning, that you're like, we're going to sit down and play how many games of this same game?
All right. Well, as usual, this list is in no particular order. We just wing it and list them as they come to us.
All right. I am going to start with the game we're going to review later tonight, which I'm not going to say too much about because we're going to review it later tonight. And that is, this game is Killer from Smirk and Dagger Games. This is a horror party game based on Aliens that's super quick to set up, and the action starts right away, right from the first turn. There's almost no setup to the game. You're handed a set of cards. You're trapped in a ship with a xenomorph, and you have to do everything you can to live, which should involve killing the alien, but might not. You get 2 cards. You pick one to be the location you're hiding, and the other the action you're taking. The action's fast and furious, with players betraying each other and blowing out sections of the ship and dying from alien attacks. There are multiple ways to win in this game, but also multiple ways to lose. Now, I got to say, when Kirk came to us and was like, I've got this awesome horror party game, I was like, horror party game? What? Well, it worked, and it won me over. So stay tuned for a full review for more details.
First up for me, I have Go Cuckoo. And no, we're never going to stop talking about this kid's dexterity game about building a bird's nest. It's reverse pickup sticks, where you choose sticks from an upturned can and then balance them across the top, trying to make a structure that will hold cuckoo eggs, while then trying to sabotage it also for the other players. Now, this one recently got reprinted by Devere and is now readily accessible. Once again, thank you very much for that.
Yes.
This is one where I can grab this and teach it to anyone at a public board game event in no time, and they will play it at least once, probably more than once, to the point where we might have to go borrow it back from them to teach it to other people.
This is one of the games I've had to say, hey, can I get Go Cuckoo off you? Because some new people want to try it.
All right, I'm going to go with Gorinto, the abstract strategy game from our sponsor, Grand Gamers Guild. Now, a few episodes back, we interviewed Mark, and he noted that this was his most sellable game. And because, as he went on to explain, in 5 minutes, he can go from showing players the basics to having them pick up the strategy, and then more often than not, they walk away with a copy of the game. And over the years, like, we found the same because when we're talking about these public play events we host, right? Gorinto is always a hit. It takes minutes to explain. People consistently pick it up right away, and they're always entranced by the way you collect blocks. Plus, it just looks great on the table.
Next, I have the Deadlies, which is almost becoming the new Go Cuckoo. It's our new Azul. It's the game we talk about all the time now. Uno for gamers, or whatever else you want to call it. There's a couple pet names for that one now, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again until it happens. This game has never failed. Once it fails, I'm going to have to tell you about it, but I have had this at every public play event since we got in the game, and it has never failed. Most recently, we had it at our Halloween Brews and Board Games event at the Walkerville Brewery, and we had 2 different groups totally hooked on this game by the end of the game. This is a game where people are taking pictures of it so they can go home and go shopping and pick up a copy of their own. What really wins people over is the rapid fire play, how quick it plays, the take that fun part of the game. It is kind of about screwing your neighbors, and the amusing theme just keeps people coming back for more. Well, I admit the first time around the table is a bit intimidating because there are 9 card effects to learn, but all of that's clearly printed on the cards themselves. So when teaching it, I go through the sins, I go through the abilities, and then I let everyone sit back and read their cards once. Once they've read them once, they get it. So just make sure you give everyone a chance to read their cards before forcing, say, hey, play some cards, play a set. No, give them a chance to read them all. That way you get that whole thing we've talked about on past episodes where people learn different ways. So I explain it, I show them the rule book, then I let them read it themselves.
All right, well, next up, I'm going with a classic in Carcassonne. What I think hooks people right from the start is the feeling that everyone is building something together, despite the fact that it is a competitive game. You all get to watch the map grow tile by tile, and then at the end, you're going to find players who didn't win taking pictures of the finished board, bragging about their longest road, best scoring cloister, or large farm. A nice part about this one is that you can basically teach it as you play. Have a player draw their tile, show it to everyone, and you can explain any special features on that tile. Now, I admit I have shifted to a more digital preference for this game, but it still really does hold up. And actually, it's probably something that if we pulled out all your expansions, we could probably have at the public play events.
Even with the expansions, unless you're a hardcore gamer, who cares? Just ignore the special abilities. Like, ignore everything but the roads and the walls, and you're good to go.
Yay, more tiles.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I've got Tsuro, and I'm going to be honest and say I do not enjoy this game, but I acknowledge it is very popular, and I've seen many people have a lot of fun with it. So I'm going to talk about how everyone else seems to be having fun from round one. Similar to Carcassonne, a big part of the fun of this game is watching the path grow, though really it's going to be the first time you play a tile that forces your opponent's dragon to crash. Better yet, if you get to crash two into each other, that's going to have you hooked. This super simple to teach game plays with up to 8 players and is fantastic for large groups as a filler or a starter. And if you find Tsuro a little too simple, I encourage you to try and find a copy of the long out of print Indigo from Ravensburger, which has a similar feel.
Yeah, Indigo is one. I need to put that on the menu for next month, I think, or later this month, because I think that'd be a popular one. That it uses hexes instead of squares, but has a very similar thing where you're trying to collect gems, and it's that again, the laying a tile, building a path. Next one I've got, and this one was more of the gut feeling, right? I'm looking around at my games. I'm thinking about this topic. We've had a couple weeks to think about this one, and I looked over and I saw KAPOW. This is the superhero dice builder from Wise Wizard Games, and it's a comic book battle. And where this one sticks out to me is that comic book feeling of escalation that starts with that very first roll. You roll those dice, and then you place them, and you're going to start improving your character right from turn one. Whether that's gaining some what they call dice sides, because it has customizable dice sides, getting new dice, or just adding stuff to your pools. What I think is great about this one is you even get that feeling in solo play, 2-player, and when playing cooperatively in teams. Well, I guess it's team games against each other. I guess when I playing out a superhero team up, I think is what was running through my head. So yeah, KAPOW, it's that first you roll the dice. And then you're just immediately like, oh, now I have more chance to dodge. Now I have more chance to do this. Oh, now I have more dice. And now I'm not only just punching, I'm now punching with a KAPOW kicker, and I'm defending with a boost.
To be honest, I'm actually on the fence about this one. I tend to think that Marvel Dice Throne is a better first turn dice game.
I was thinking the same thing.
The problem I think is Yahtzee makes more sense to people intuitively, whereas KAPOW takes a bit of thought. To a gamer, I think you're right. I think it's absolutely first off. But for someone who's not inexperienced, which was part of what Pax mentioned, KAPOW might be a step too far. It's hard to say. Right. I'm on the fence there. For me, though,
technically, I guess at that point, if we're going to say Marvel Dice, we may as well just say Dice Throne. Doesn't have to be Marvel.
Well, I haven't played their other ones, so. Next up, I've got Quacks of Quedlinburg. Now, this is a game with a definite build-up, but right from the start, you are having fun. I don't know how many times I've seen people bust on that first turn, and the good thing is that it just doesn't matter that much early on. Losing a point or two can be totally worth the chance to be able to buy a level 2 or higher chit in that first buying phase.
Yeah, that's a great one. That one, people have so much fun with that game, and it just escalates and it gets more ridiculous as the game goes on. That is a game that wins people over right away, or they absolutely hate it because they hate the randomness. It's one of the two.
The one thing about Quacks of Quedlinburg, to make it fun from the start, make sure all your players have easy access to the recipe cards. That's an important part, because if you're struggling with that and have to read or reach, that can slow down that game and take away a little bit of the fun, and if you don't know it already.
Yeah, and another tip is don't put out the recipes that aren't available. When you're playing with experienced gamers, putting out those purple and yellow, I think it is, that get added in as the game goes on, makes sense because you're going to want to look ahead. But with new gamers, don't even put them on the table. That way you have limited choices those first rounds.
I'm going with MonsDRAWsity. Honestly, most drawing games would fit the list. I also considered Telestrations and Caution Signs, but both of those have a bit of a build-up where you have to explain how everything works, whereas MonsDRAWsity is just so simple and it starts right away. One person looks at a card and then they describe the monster that they saw and everyone else starts drawing. It really couldn't be easier, and the fun starts right from round one.
Yeah, that game's so super simple. Like we just explained the whole game to you, right? Someone looks at a card and then puts it down and describes a monster, everyone else draws it. Like everyone gets that right from the start. Now, another one people pick up right away is Drop It, because they just look at it, and by now Tetris is pretty much ubiquitous and dropping things to fill columns, and those along with other similar games. They just see this and then and like people see it and like, what is that? And as soon as you drop that first piece, you're hooked. Like I remember Sean the first time he dropped a piece, more importantly, and it not quite acting exactly how he wanted and going, nope, I get this. And he literally said that he dropped the piece and went, I get this. And it's one of the fun parts about this game is the way they slide and the bounce and the ways you don't expect it. But the other aspect, though, is the fact there's a real game here. There's some strategy. This is a game where you're dropping shapes into a holder, Tetris style, but there's a limitation, but there's a limitation of not being able to touch the same shape or same color, or you don't score any points. And that leads to actual tactical and sometimes strategic play where you're deciding what pieces you have or maybe saving some for later in the round because you can see what your opponent's playing. And I love the fact that there's that much depth in what's basically a game about dropping wooden shapes in a trough.
Yeah, I think the really interesting thing for me is you need to get someone to drop a piece in. Even if they're not playing, just bring them over and get them to drop a piece in first and to get them hooked, because it's easy to look at the game from afar and think, oh, Connect 4. You're going to drop a piece in and then you're going to drop another piece next to it. And except it doesn't work that way. Physics takes over and makes it so much more of a game. So that first drop really does make a difference. All right. And next up for me is Picture Perfect. I've been taking a lot of photographs lately, so I'm right on for this theme. There's just something about opening up your initial envelopes and trying to figure out how to start placing your standees and arranging the photo before you that just felt immersive, interesting, and then engaging right from the start. You really get the feel of trying to make everyone happy, and it just grows as the game goes on. And then there's the anticipation of snapping that picture at the end, and knowing that your photography is what you're going to judge the game on, not, how you might have been looking at it otherwise.
Yeah, that moment where you actually have to break out your cell phone and take the picture, that it makes the game.
Last time we played, I think that was the longest part of the game. Everyone was trying to get the perfect picture and angle their camera on. Like there's some restrictions, right? Like all you can see is game pieces and you can't be above the camera. And there's all these little rules for having to do it. But then your score is based on that picture, not how they are. So it doesn't matter if you look like that person's blocked, if you can see their face. I remember losing
that
points.
Game had no AP until we all took out our cell phones. And
yeah, we were all pretty quick with the term, but yes, getting the perfect cell phone picture was a big part of the game.
I'm going to talk about Castle Panic. One of the things we learned while checking out the Castle Panic big box is that it can quickly suck you in, whether you're playing the base game or tossing in all of the expansions. It works because you start the game in peril, and it never lets up until you either win or lose. It just keeps escalating. It's very tense, and it does a good co-op thing where it's a close game. And you're going to lose, but it's going to feel like you could have won and you just want to try again. Check out our review to find out what we think is the best combination of expansions if you're ready to move on from the base game.
Now, based on the list so far, I started to notice a trend here while looking through it and trying to add some more to it. And I noticed there's a lot of tile laying games where you're building something. That seems to be something that just engages people. And I think that's why there's so many tile games on this list, like Monster Factories. Here's another one I'm going to throw out quick just as a suggestion, because you're building monsters and you see the monsters grow. That's a little simpler than most of the games on the list, but they seems to fit. So here's another one with a little bit more meat than Monster Factory, and that is Lanterns: The Harvest Festival. Now, my favorite part about this game is that everyone is involved all the time, because whenever you place a tile, not only do you get to collect colored lanterns based on how it's placed, but so do all of your opponents. And I love games where you have to try to help yourself, but not, and you end up helping your opponents, and you're like, I need to help myself more than him. I don't want to do this move where, I get one thing I need, but I get Sean 3 things he needs. And I adore that as a mechanic. And I think Lanterns is one of the best games in that genre, which I'm not sure if there's a term for that genre of game, but if there is, Lanterns is one of my favorites of that style.
All right. Well, Fantastic Factories is probably the heaviest game on our list tonight. And what makes this game so great is the fact that it's an engine builder that is super quick to set up and easy to teach and is just engaging from turn 1. It's a game that feels like a heavier game, stripped right down to its essentials. Leaving something that's streamlined, but still gives you that feeling of building something in the end, ending up with your fantastic factory.
And for our final entry, we've got Destinies. Okay, yes, there is a bit of a learning phase you need to go through to figure out how the game works mechanically. But then once you start that initial intro scenario, you are immediately immersed into a medieval fantasy world where you get to explore, interact with NPCs, collect and use objects, improve your character, and you're just part of an immersive story, and it doesn't pull any punches. This is a game where the actions you take matter and will have repercussions later, which is made even more interesting by the fact you're actually competing with the other players to see who can fulfill their destiny first. I'm going to use that word immersive again because it's the immersive nature of this one that I think makes it a good fit for the list. You are immediately sucked in and engaged with the game from round one.
Well, that's 15 games, 5 from each of us. I think that's pretty good for our list. So, Sean, what does the chat room have to add? I've seen a couple scroll by.
Yeah.
Hopefully everyone's been using #ask so you can find them.
I've seen a few in there. The first one is an interesting one because I'm not sure how I would describe this or whether I would think it's accurate. But Charlie Brown Ninja says Gloomhaven games start strong, as does Journey to Middle-earth, whereas most of the other types of games like that are very slow to build.
Jaws of the Lion?
I wouldn't say either of those games to me would fit the list for myself.
Not for inexperienced gamers.
Yeah, for inexperienced gamer, I think Gloomhaven is far too complicated. Even Jaws of the Lion, it is not if you're looking for a dungeon crawl, you want Hero Quest. You want, here's your 4 people, here's your room, roll a d6 to move. You open the door, here are some goblins, go. To me, that's Hero Quest would be your dungeon crawler that's fun from turn 1. I didn't put it on the list tonight because, I don't know. I guess it could have fit actually pretty well now that I think about it.
It gets frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, but it's still fun. It's fun from the start, but it's not always fun. The first scenario is way too hard. The first scenario in Hero Quest is one of the most difficult ever published. And it's a design choice, and in my opinion, not a good one. And they didn't fix it on the new one. Now, yes, I find and Gloomhaven. Know what else makes Gloomhaven, even Jaws of the Lion, not a great fun from turn 1? Because you have to spend 8 hours before turn 1 sorting everything. There's a whole, or even unless you show up and you've got your expert Gloomhaven DM with the table all laid out and the characters all picked up and all your deck shuffled and everything's sorted and perfectly organized. You're not sitting down to have fun right away when you sit down to a Gloomhaven game.
Gloomhaven, it might be fun from turn 1.
Yeah, maybe if you show up to the prepared, everything's ready to go. It literally starts and you start reading the scenario and go, then maybe Gloomhaven's fun from turn 1.
All right. Well, Pax, who asked this question, is here in the chat room tonight. Thank you very much for joining us, Pax. I hope this is giving you some of what you looked for. They had jumped in and they'd gotten Gorinto, as they just listened to Mark's episode and heard his description of Gorinto being just exactly this type of game. Next up, Charlie Brown again saying Flashpoint. Is definitely not a slow burn, pun included.
Yeah, I honestly, this was one of those earlier today. We had 10 games on our list, and I wanted 5 more, and I went downstairs, and I actually had my phone with me. I took pictures so I wouldn't forget them. And Flashpoint was there. It didn't make my cut of 5. The last 5 games on the list I thought were better than Flashpoint, and I didn't want to go edit the other stuff because Sean and Dee had already seen it and talked about it and were ready and color-coded stuff. So I didn't want to mess with the earlier list. But I actually think Flashpoint's a great one. And what I love about Flashpoint is it concludes basic rules they call it the family game, I think, and advanced rules. And I love it because for those new gamers, you just play with the basic rules where everyone's the same. Everyone takes the same actions. You fight fires, you hack at walls, or you move. I think those are the main actions. It's been a while since I played that one. But then later you can add into the special roles and stuff like that. And I will admit, another one I considered for similar reasons was Pandemic.
I've still never played Flashpoint. I don't think Sean's tried it either.
I have, actually. I played Flashpoint at the barber shop, and I completely agree. It had me hooked from the first turn. It's really an engaging game.
And one of the things that it's got the Castle Panic thing, and it's the same thing with Pandemic. It's that peril. You start an immediate peril. The building's on fire. You don't wait for the fire to build. The building's on fire. and there's a token over there that could be the cat. Come on, you got to go save it, right?
Yeah, it's in media res. All right, I got one I was thinking about when we were talking, and it's space, and I want to know your thoughts on that. Because I'm like, it's a whole thing where you're engaged because when the other people are taking their turns, you're still generating resources. Even from the very beginning, you're getting something out of every turn. It feels like there's a little bit of a slow build, but I feel like that's a really engaging game from round one.
Again, I was in the basement. I took a picture of it, but the fact that the actual publisher came out with get started, quick start, skip the first 3 turns rules to me means they even think it had a bit too slow a burn at the beginning.
Right. Okay. So maybe I'm thinking I like it with those quick start rules because we have been playing with those. So
where you start with some stuff in your base. I think honestly, it's got that keep everyone engaged in everyone's turn, but I think it takes a bit to ramp into being interesting.
Okay.
Because otherwise, I put Valeria Card Kingdoms on the list. But I think it's the same thing that turn 1, you're just kind of collecting resources and getting stuff. And it takes about 3 times around the table before you get something cool.
Start to feel like you got something cool.
And you also have to pick a direction for your engine and then start moving things. I tend to agree. Valeria had popped into my mind earlier and I was like, no, it's really not.
It's hard to squeak any engine builder in there. I mean, you managed to get fantastic factories in, but like most engine builders, reward that slow build, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Charlie Brown's got Sentinels of the Multiverse could be a slow burn to build your powers, but more often your first couple of rounds could be your strongest. I think because of the villain and location decks, this one actually might really be one of the few card games I would put on here, this kind of card games on here. Because I was thinking about the DC deck builders and stuff like that, and I wouldn't put them on here because it takes a little bit to build some sort of engine. But I think Sentinels could be because you can really, start slugging it out to round 1.
The problem with that one is that's a system mastery game. You're going to get your deck and have no idea what to do. You get your deck, you're overwhelmed. You're like, I don't know what to do with this. That is the experience I've had with almost everyone who's played that game with me is I have no idea what to do with this stuff. I need to play once to get to know my cards. Once I know my cards, round 2 is fantastic. I now know I'm the speedster and I need to get a bunch of these in play, or I now know I need to do this. And I think our experience when we played the 3 of us Sentinels, where we were trying all new decks all together, I think that was a perfect example of experienced gamers having a bad time with the game because we didn't know what we were getting into.
I must felt like it was a feature, not a flaw. Like the exploration of discovering the deck was one of the only parts of the game I enjoyed. But
Now, I will say I think Marvel Champions does a better job of immersing you right away, but Sean hasn't tried that one yet.
All right, and then finally, last one we've got from the Ask is Camel Up.
Good one, solid. I totally agree. Right from turn 1, you can make a bet that first turn. And some players do, which makes it interesting. Program movement games were actually kind of in there for me. I was trying to say like Robo Rally. And then the other one that came to my mind was Colt Express. Almost ended up on the list tonight. Robo Rally came off because Robo Rally can be way too frustrating for new players if they don't get it right away.
It can go long.
They don't rock it. And they program the robot wrong. The first turn is more frustrating than fun. But Colt Express was close. It's been so long since I played it. And I was like, I have a hard time recommending this game that I haven't played in far too long.
All right, well, there you have a bunch of games that are fun right from the start. Great for less experienced gamers, hooking new people on gaming, and for when you don't want your game night to feel like work. No system mastery needed here, though experience will help you play any game better.
Okay, I feel like we missed some stuff here. What did we miss, folks? What games do you think are fun right from the go? What would you add to this list?
We'd also love to hear your opinion on the games that we in our chat room called out tonight. Do you disagree with us? Do you think Sentinels of the Multiverse is a fantastic? You're engaged right from the start. Is Gloomhaven something that sucked you in right from turn 1? We would love to hear your opinion on that. Let us know. You can leave a comment, send us an email, send a direct message, or post something on our Discord at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.